One of the other things that I have tried to dig into is the relationship between cost to charges and contractual allowances. Now, cost to charges are essentially what it is, it's the total cost to total charge that the hospital has, versus the contractual allowance being the amount that is negotiated downward. And so I thought, well, if cost to charge ratios are increasing, what does that mean for contractual allowances? Is there a correlation here? The reason why I ask that is because cost to charges are one of the key metrics within healthcare. And within healthcare, cost to charge ratios essentially determine how much funding specific hospitals and clinics can receive for government services and from CMS related services. And so you can have high cost of charges or low cost of charges, and the preference is to have a low cost to charge ratio. But on the other hand, contractual allowances is the flip of the coin to where if you tend to have low cost of charges, then you tend to have high contractual allowances. One of the other things I found interesting is that you have a trend where you have cost to charge ratios over time going down, meaning that the top line costs are higher than the charges over time. And so you have higher and higher and higher costs, and then the charges that are then provided are less and less and less. And so this cost to charge ratio means that if you have greater charges than costs, then your cost to charge ratio is going to go down. And so the more and more and more you charge, the lower and lower and lower your cost to charge ratio is. If your cost to charge ratio is at 0.42%, what this means is that 42% of your costs are what you charge. And so you will charge 42 cents on the dollar for every dollar that you charge. And so if you charge more, then your cost to charge ratio will go down. And so if you charge more, then you'll have a lower cost to charge ratio than you would have otherwise. Likewise, if you charge more at the top line level, then you will also need to negotiate down, or insurance companies will be motivated to negotiate downward. And so if you have lower cost to charge ratios, then you will have high contractual allowances because these two are similar and related. The difference is that contractual allowances looks at net patient revenue. And so net patient revenue over charges is what constitutes contractual allowances. Cost to charge ratios are your costs over your charges. And so it's looking at a cost basis where contractual allowances are looking at it at a revenue basis. Now, if we flip cost to charge ratio and make it charges as a percentage of cost, what you'll see is that charges as a percentage of cost go up very closely to contractual allowances. In 2020, it was an anomaly to where charges as a percentage of cost decreased and then came back up. But it's quite interesting because these two trend very, very closely together. And so, what I thought would be very, very helpful was to build out a correlation between the two. How much are cost to charge ratios correlated with contractual allowances? And what we see is that contractual allowances and cost to charge ratios are negatively correlated by 63%. And the way we achieved that, or the way we got to this, was just a correlation coefficient as well as a regression. And so if you can look below, we have a regression here that shows all the hospitals that we plotted out in terms of contractual allowance percentage and a cost to charge ratio. And it's certainly downward to where if you have a lower cost to charge ratio, you have a higher contractual allowance. The same goes for that negative correlation coefficient. So if we take specific states, then we'll see how correlated cost to charge ratios are with contractual allowances. So if we look at, let's say, California again, what we will see is that there isn't that much of a correlation between cost to charge ratios and contractual allowances. which is very, very interesting. There's a negative correlation of 9.42, but that's not as highly correlated. If we look at, let's say, another state like Georgia, for example, that is more correlated and there's a higher correlation coefficient here. Even though when you look at the plot below, there's certainly a wide range in terms of cost to charge ratios and contractual allowances for all the hospital systems and health systems within Georgia. We can look at a series of other states, like Missouri, for example, that they certainly cluster and have a higher correlation coefficient. But then you can also see it in the trend basis. And so it didn't trend together until, let's say, 27 and 2018, where the cost of charges and contractual allowances trended more closely.